Hello folks, I'm Bernie Arbick. I'm here in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and I'm a member of the Chippewa County Historical Society. Over the years, I've collected some short stories that I really would love to share with you, and I hope you enjoy them. Sandstone, the bedrock of Sioux history. When I was a youngster growing up in the Sioux, I naturally began exploring my hometown and its neighborhoods, especially after I got my first bike. Only a short bike ride north of my house was the Ashman Street Bridge, which crosses the Power Canal, a very rapidly moving 2¼ mile long water delivery system that feeds the hydroelectric plant on the lower river. That canal was certainly the most impressive and fascinating piece of the local landscape to a young boy. The current runs at about 7 miles per hour, and when you look at the eddies and turbulence in the flow, it can be quite intimidating, at least to a young non-swimmer. As I think back on that time, I recall that I naively assumed that every town had its own power canal. Little did I know that such a canal can only be built in relatively few locales blessed with a very special topography. And much later, as I became interested in our town's history, it became apparent that 3 important parts of my hometown's personality relate to that topography, namely the St. Mary's Rapids, Sioux Locks, and the Power Canal. The geological explanation for the rapids, which made the locks necessary and made hydropower possible, is a layer of rock called Jacobsville Sandstone that runs across the Upper Peninsula below the surface, crosses into Ontario at the Sioux. Water from the ancient Lake Superior Basin flowed through the valley at the eastern end of the Upper Peninsula, eroding away the soil until it reached the sandstone level, when further erosion almost ceased. Gradually, the rapids were formed here, perhaps about 2,000 years ago. The rapids environment was excellent fish habitat, teeming with whitefish. The area was a magnet for early Native Americans, and at some point, the Ojibwa, or Anishinaabe, created a village that depended heavily on the fishery. By the time the earliest French explorers and missionaries arrived here in the 17th century, the Ojibwa had long since perfected a unique method of fishing in the rapids from a canoe, using dip nets. The Jesuit relations of 1669 and 1670 contain a detailed description of this type of fishing. They were still doing it until about 1910, as this image shows. Surely, few techniques for much of anything have persisted almost unchanged for anything like 250 years. The rapids made travel by water into Lake Superior more difficult for canoes, since portaging the canoe and its contents was required. For large ships, this was not even possible. With the discovery of copper and later iron ore in the western Upper Peninsula, pressure to build a shipping canal with a set of locks became irresistible. The young state of Michigan did just that in the 1850s, and the job required blasting and smashing through the aforementioned sandstone ledge. A second, larger lock was completed in 1881. Much of the sandstone that was removed became building material for a growing town. The potential for making use of water power had long been recognized. Dreams of making the Sioux an industrial center, the Chicago of the North, sparked investors to start a hydro project. The first serious effort, begun in the 1880s, envisioned using water power to operate machinery, much as water wheels had been doing for centuries. This effort went belly up, but by the 1890s, the generation of electricity was seen as a more flexible approach, and by 1902, with new investors, the Power Canal and Powerhouse were completed, looking essentially like what we have today. It has been generating clean hydroelectricity for over 120 years now. As mentioned earlier, The vast amounts of beautiful red and gray sandstone that had to be removed during construction of the locks in the power canal presented a stockpile of building stone. During the early 1900s, that stone was used to build a couple of magnificent churches that still grace our city's landscape. The Central United Methodist Church on Spruce Street and the St. James Episcopal Church on Bingham Avenue. And it's so appropriate that the most impressive structure made of canal stone is the powerhouse itself. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. And if you would like to see another one of these, down below you should see a button you could click on. Rather than doing a lengthy story, I split it into 2 stories that are kind of related and fit together, but this way you can just click and watch a second one if you have time.